Man, I spent hours of my life eating lasagna. Oh boy, it's the Garfield movie. It sucks. I made a video like a year ago discussing all the Garfield movies that were released at the time, in which I came to the very acute observation that they're all pretty, bad. Some of them weren't without merit. Honestly, that first one is the closest to being a solid movie, even if that's not saying much. But it mostly came down to the fact that the world of Garfield, at least from an outsider's perspective, seems awfully limiting. The first one was your standard adventure movie of the lasagna-loving feline seeking out Odie in the big city after he gets kidnapped. The second was your average Prince and the Pauper plot. Garfield becomes British royalty after being mistaken for an identical cat who now gets to assume his life. And after that, they just decided to go completely off the walls and make 3 CG movies where Garfield lives in a meta world where he works as a comic strip actor, where everyone takes photographs of the panels and beams it up to the newspapers of Earth. Also became a superhero at one point. Point being, felt like they didn't know what to do with him in a lot of cases, which is why I was actually fairly excited for this new one, even if it did seem a tad aimless with its marketing, mainly banking on the fact that it is indeed Garfield. Most of the posters for this thing were just parodies of other movie posters from the time. Not a unique tactic, I'm aware, but I wasn't really sure why I was meant to go and see this, other than because it stars Garfield. Initial impressions didn't have anyone too hopeful, especially with that announcement of Chris Pratt playing the titular cat himself right after being memed on for being given the role of Super Mario. But once the trailers started rolling out, I started becoming more confident that it would at the very least be a solid flick with expressive animation and some fun gags. And that seemed to be the case when it finally released, and a lot of people I know were saying it was fantastic. A genuinely great film, which got me really hopeful. I was originally not even going to watch it because it's the fucking Garfield movie, but the positive word of mouth worked. So I got my ticket, proceeded to get really, really high, and I hated it. I thought it was dog shit. I mean cat shit. And so, here's my review of the Garfield movie. But first, if there were anything that the Garfield movie made me want to do, it was chain smoke. So if you were looking to break your bad habits, then may I recommend Fume. This video is sponsored by Fume. Fume looks at the problem a different way, providing you with an innovative, award-winning device that replaces that habit with this. An adjustable airflow dial allows you to de-stress from this anxiety. I'm telling you, they gave me this thing like a year ago, and I still find myself using it. Even if you're not looking to break any bad habits, it works just as well as something for your hands to fidget with. I love it. It's like an adult fidget toy. They come with all these great flavors, too. I like the raspberry lemonade a lot, but they're all good. With over 300,000 customers and thousands of success stories, there's no reason one can't be you. So head to tryfume.com/lsmark or scan the QR code and use LSMark to get a free Fume BS when you order the Journey Pack, this cool magnetic stand for your device. That's tryfum.com and use code LSMark to get that freaking sweet stand. And thanks Fume for sponsoring this video. I suppose I should preface this by saying I am not a Garfield fan. My main exposure to the franchise was by watching a bootleg DVD of Garfield Gets Real a whole lot as a kid. But other than that, I couldn't care less. And so if you like Garfield and this was everything you could have wanted, I'm happy for you. But I guess I'm looking at this more from the perspective of it being, a movie. Now, to get it out of the way first before I go into my patented hater bitching, I want to make it clear that this film isn't without merit. I want to praise the animation especially. I'm really glad goofy slapstick has been making a comeback in these features. I really love how expressive the posing is, and their attempts at recreating certain faces that wouldn't be as easy to accomplish in 3D without seriously skewing the model is definitely worth praising. Garfield's slight redesign took a bit of getting used to, mainly making more of an effort to have his body and head seem less separate, but overall, looked pretty good. There were certain moments, however, especially during the middle portion where they're primarily standing around in fields in the day. The colors looked really muddied and pretty ugly, like someone turned down the saturation. I didn't want it to be super bright and colorful or anything, but it just made a couple scenes look a tad underlaid, like I was watching a Netflix movie, something that didn't belong in a theater. Overall, though, looks solid, even if this was a further reminder that I'm really not a fan of Garfield humans. During the restaurant scene near the beginning, all the people really have low-budget French cartoon vibes. I don't know if that's just me. Chris Pratt, though, was just as unfitting as everyone thought it would be. I think everyone here gives a pretty good performance, Samuel L. Jackson especially, but Chris Pratt sucks. He adds nothing to the role and falls into the same trap he had as Mario, where he would try to put on a voice, but only sometimes. The whole movie he ranges from Chris Pratt to Chris Pratt doing an impression of Garfield. With all that said, though, where I think this movie really blunders is with the story. It feels like it went through a million rewrites and all we're left with is a hodgepodge of different ideas, none of which feel very fleshed out as a result. It somehow manages to be too fast-paced while at the same time being utterly boring. There were at least 2 instances where I thought the movie was reaching its end, but Jesus, it just kept going. The feeling of a bunch of stuff being left on the cutting room floor definitely wasn't helped by the credit sequence, which inserts an intro song for the villain with a bunch of messy storyboard doodles. I'm at least glad someone's work here didn't go to complete waste, but at the same time I have to wonder how they could go through all that work only not to include it in the movie. Because otherwise, the villain has little to no presence until the last 30 or so minutes. Basically, she's pissed off at Garfield's dad Vic because he didn't come help her when she got kidnapped by the pond, and so she's forcing Garfield to work with him to steal a massive amount of milk from the local lactose farms, or else she'll kill him, I guess. Which Garfield is not only pissed about because, well, he's Garfield, but also because he's mad at his father for abandoning him as a baby. Really feels like they're 5 years too late to the whole marketable baby origin story for iconic character shtick. Sorry, did I say 5 years? I meant 35 years. Oh yeah, I hope you weren't expecting to see too much of John in this movie. He's merely delegated to a side gag where he's stuck on the phone with tech support for 45 minutes of the movie. Yay! Not that I mind or anything, I'm not crying over the lack of John present here. Mainly because Vic and Garfield's relationship is by far the most interesting thing going on, even if the big bombshell reveal was a bit lackluster. Halfway through the film, they're pretty much just forced into resolving their differences, with Vic letting him know that he wasn't abandoning his son. He just saw how John could give him a much better life. Aren't you crying? I would have much preferred if more focus were put on the two of them having to actually resolve their differences rather than the movie basically going, okay, you were given your reason, now you're all good. Instead, we get a boring heist movie where Garfield, Vic, and Odie, oh yeah, Odie is here too, have to infiltrate the factory to get the milk, but also help out this ox to get his cow girlfriend who's been kept there to entertain kids. By the end, I was just rolling my fucking eyes. They were throwing every cliche at the wall at that point to try and tug on your heartstrings. When this annoying animal control lady stops them from getting the milk, Vic uses it as his chance to distract her with Garfield and Odie while he flees with the reward. Where we have that really forced moment of, I'm so sorry, son. Please forgive me. And Garfield is all sad that his daddy left him again and he has to get taken to the pond. I'm just going to tell you the string of events that occur here because it was just prime. And then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, without much rhyme or reason other than for the sake of getting the characters where they need to be for the big action climax where Garfield uses Uber Eats and Olive Garden to save the day. Not making that up. So Garfield gets taken to the pond where he's bitching about his dad, to which all the other cats there, including Snoop Dogg, very clever, start talking about how they also hate Vic, because he's abandoned them too, in which they start saying super on-the-nose lines like, yeah, he was always running off to check on his son that he loved so much. He'd sit on the tree across from the house and put a notch on the tree for every time he was there. Ugh. To which Garfield continuously interjects by going, yeah, right. He's probably just lying about that super specific scenario that would be pointless to lie about, and even then I'm getting secondhand confirmation about it from people who knew him and have no reason to defend him. Yeah, he's probably lying. Then John appears and takes them home, in which our hero's journey is almost complete. Garfield can't help but want to take a look at the tree to see if it was true. So he climbs it, and what do you know? He wasn't lying. All the notches are there. Who could have guessed? The suspense was killing me. It was at this point in the theater that I heard a kid in the audience loudly exclaim, "What is that?" To which I then realized that none of the children in the crowd had been paying attention to the movie at all, and were in fact continually getting up in groups to leave for minutes on end. This is when it gets super confusing, because Garfield now proclaims, "It all makes sense now! Vic must have known that we would get taken to the pond, and that John would find us! He must have also known that the cat lady would double-cross him and didn't want to put us in danger! He's in trouble! We gotta help him!" Which would be convoluted, but ultimately fine, if we didn't also get a scene of Vic delivering the milk and being shocked by the double-cross, meaning Garfield has just created this mental gymnastics in his head to defend his dad in his own mind, which would be funny. If it weren't played completely straight. We're meant to believe Garfield when he says this. It's like the movie doesn't even realize it just contradicted itself. Also, at this point, I guess they just completely forgot about their promise to help out the ox. But once he eventually rolls back into action to save his dad, he realizes he needs backup and just calls him like, "Dude, I need a favor." In which the Ox isn't even remotely pissed off, he's just like, "Yeah, I'm in." Instead of something that would have made sense for his character like, "Hey, didn't I just do you a favor by training you for your mission and your dad fucked me over? Why would I help him?" No, he's cool with it. Great. And so they rescue his dad, defeat the villain, and save the day. They then get the milk from the animal control lady by trading it for the cat villain, despite her never wanting that cat, and so Vic goes on to have more of a presence in his son's life. Also, this movie runs on the logic of nobody being able to understand the animals, but there's clearly one moment at the very end where I guess they just forgot about that when John asks Garfield a question and acknowledges his response. Also, we see that the animal control lady is making the cat villain do community service, which, in this world, if a cat's just a cat, why is it doing community... It's a cartoon, I know, but not that it even matters, because they already established in this world there's an app that allows you to automatically translate anything an animal says into English. Why the fuck isn't everybody using this? You know, there's being a silly gag, and then there's being a lazy workaround for needing the humans to understand what the animals are saying at one specific moment in the film. Also, want to add, not a particularly funny movie. I think it works best when it's relying on simple slapstick comedy. All that stuff worked well. I liked how much Garfield got injured, as weird as that is to say. But most of the written dialogue ranged from groan-worthy, like him using these acorns as earbuds and going, "Wow, someone should put this on Shark Tank," to starting off funny, before getting completely run into the ground. Like when the Ox is explaining their plan through creatures like, "Oh, Vic, you know, you're the frog, Odie, you're the... whatever, I don't remember." Then for Garfield, he drags in this dead possum. Which was funny. Garfield's initial anger towards this was pretty humorous too, but then he just keeps going. He halts the whole scene to continue asking why he has the dead possum and that he wants something else, something cooler, and that it's not fair and everyone else just tells him to be quiet, and he continues crying about it for minutes on end. And at a certain point, it just made me look back and go, okay, the joke wasn't that funny. And so now when I look back on that gag, I don't remember the 5 seconds in which I find it funny, but instead the subsequent 30 seconds where I find it to be an annoying peace breaker. Overall, the Garfield movie isn't, like, offensively bad or anything. Honestly, I'd describe it as being painfully mediocre. But it's just another one of those throw-ass summer kids movies that comes and goes. I can't imagine anyone other than Garfield fans or kids will like this. Unless you're watching specifically for the fun animation, which is definitely a highlight. If I were to add this to my ranking of Garfield movies, which I have to assume I did by the end of that video, I'm not looking back at it, I'd probably put this as the second best Garfield movie, with it going above A Tale of Two Kitties, but below Garfield. I don't know, I just think that one did a better job at feeling like, you know, a movie. But I mean, whatever, do you care? None of these are very good. Watch the Garfield movie for the animation, but don't expect anything that'll stick with ya. I look forward to not watching the sequel 2 years from now.